NASCAR responded to the team's request for a new injunction, and we learned a lot of things ahead of their hearing next week. We also got a look at what the 2026 NASCAR Cup Series schedule is going to look like, and are we about to see Cup drivers in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series and Truck Series more in the future? Welcome back to Break Hard. I'm Matt. To address the elephant in the room, yes, I do have the Quickie Mart Simpsons Lego back there. I moved it from the top shelf down so people can get a look at it. Maybe I'll move the Simpsons house down at some point as well. On Tuesday, we also got some additional screenshots from the NASCAR 25 video game. I know, let's see some gameplay. I'm getting really worried. We haven't seen any gameplay yet. It's probably just going to be just like Ignition. The NASCAR video game people are some of the most toxic on the entire internet. I'm willing to sit back and let this ride and be like, hey, I'm just happy that we have a video game coming out made by what seems to be competent people. But we'll start off with a couple of these screenshots real quick. The first one being from the NASCAR Xfinity Series at Homestead. You got Nick Sanchez, you got Ryan Sieg there in the front. Looks really, really good. I'm actually pretty pumped about how great that looks. I know they're just screenshots. I know it's not actual gameplay footage. To quote Stephen A. Smith, I do not care. We also got some look at some ARCA cars. I believe you got Jason Kitzmiller there in the 97. And then you've got Cletus McFarland in the 30 car, the Ford Mustang there. Appears to be at Watkins Glen as well. Did not see Cletus doing right turns and left turns this year, but still cool to see that on there. Also got to look at the Cup Series at Charlotte. You got William Byron and his left front there. You can see Kyle Larson, Joey Logano, Chase Elliott. Believe that's Austin Cindric maybe that's leading the race up there. And then you got to look at the Truck Series as well at Texas Motor Speedway. You have Lane Riggs leading the way with the 17 of Gio Ruggiero. Behind him, Corey Heim on the outside as well. Overall, I think that looks absolutely fantastic. Now, what we did learn on late Monday night, early Tuesday, depending on when you saw the news, NASCAR responded to the team's request for a new injunction, and we learned a lot of things. In the latest episode of NASCAR, we learned that they would like to have these charters, the 6 that are 3 to 2311, 3 at Front Row Motorsports, sold by October 1st. We also learned that NASCAR pays their teams more than F1 pays their teams in terms of percentage of revenue, and we got a couple other little tidbits in there as well. But we're going to start off with the charters. NASCAR wants to sell those charters, and we have a hearing next week. NASCAR, the teams have a hearing next week where that will be determined whether or not the teams get a new injunction, which means that they're going to keep their charter status. NASCAR can't sell their charters. If they're denied that new injunction request, guess what? NASCAR is going to turn around and they're going to open up the bidding process for 30 days and have those charters sold and delivered to their new owners by October 1st, because NASCAR wants to make sure that they get them by October 1st so they have them in time and have enough prep time to get ready for the Daytona 500 in February. Now, what happens with the money from this? Well, it appears that NASCAR will give the teams back the money they spent on the Stewart-Haas Racing charters, but that's the only money that they're going to get back from these potential charter sales. Who are these charters going to be sold off to? Well, NASCAR says that they have many eager potential entrants. And in the response that was submitted to the court, Steve Phelps said that they have a number of different teams, and there's 5 redacted lines of teams inside NASCAR, outside of NASCAR, and other possible people that could be looking to buy those charters. Phelps says, quote, unlike the plaintiffs, many individuals and organizations believe the interested parties referenced above view the 2025 charters as a good investment and want to acquire them and work with NASCAR to further grow the Cup Series, which that's kind of been a NASCAR talking point since the beginning. They don't think that 2311 Racing FRM have the same interests that they do in terms of growing the sport, and they only want to work with people that want to grow the sport. They also mention in here as well that the court can't force NASCAR to do business with people that NASCAR does not want to do business with, and NASCAR has contended, from the beginning of this, they don't want to do business with these guys anymore. Whether that's right or wrong, it's up for interpretation on however you want to look at it. Regardless, there's a lot of pursuers for these charters. Jimmy Johnson Legacy Motor Club probably just chomping at the bit to get involved in this. And obviously there's some talks with them possibly buying Haas factory team. They're in a lawsuit right now with Rick Ware Racing. And hey, maybe they want to get involved with this and we can just have kind of a conglomerate of lawsuits just all being brought together here. Regardless, October 1st, that's the date NASCAR wants to have all these charters sold by, if in fact they are allowed to sell them. we'll see how that goes. NASCAR also argued that the teams don't need this injunction request because the teams are basically guaranteed starting spots. NASCAR made a rule change in terms of owner points for open cars last month, and now those teams are going to have a starting spot for the remainder of the season. And if they start every race next year as well, if they wanted to do that, they're likely going to have those starting spots as well, just because we don't have full-time entrants doing open cars, so it falls in line with how that rule reads. NASCAR did also say that the fact that, teams initially needed this, request for an injunction, the one that was issued to them the first time that gave them their charter status back, because without having a charter, one of their drivers could leave, one of their sponsors could leave. And now NASCAR is saying none of that has happened yet, and you're still guaranteed a starting spot, so you don't need these charters. Also, NASCAR believes that the teams can't show a likelihood of success on their claim to NASCAR being a monopoly, and kind of ARCA series out here catching ricochet shots, just caught astray when NASCAR referred to them in the documents in court as tiny ARCA when they acquired them in 2018. It's like, dang, just got one right there, and they didn't even need it. NASCAR also said that Michael Jordan wants to use the litigation process to get a permanent charter, which no other Cup Series owner has. I do want to point out real quick, though, that Jeff Gluck did break this down a little bit further, and he had updated it, and within that response, and apparently Michael Jordan in deposition said that 2311 Racing has made reasonable profits over the last few years, which goes against kind of what we've heard, where we've talked about or heard drivers and team owners rather say that they're not making a profit, they're barely breaking even, things like that. So that does go against the grain a little bit there, but for the most part, we'll see. Also, didn't realize Formula One's made up of a bunch of poors, but it sounds like they are, because NASCAR pays a higher percentage of revenue out to the teams than what Formula One does. So, hey, if you want to make some more money, apparently just come over to NASCAR. Within that response, though, NASCAR says that they now pay 62% of revenue to the teams, up from I believe the 25%, which is what the 2016 charter agreement had. So that is a massive increase there for the teams. Regardless, we'll have to wait and see what the court decides, what Judge Kenneth Bell decides next week. It's gonna go one of two ways. Either NASCAR is gonna be able to sell these charters because the teams were denied their request for a new injunction, or they're gonna be granted that injunction and keep their charter status. Then we head off to trial on December 1st, and then we all have to wait and see what happens there. But regardless, NASCAR is not ending anytime soon. On Tuesday, we got our first look at the 2026 schedule, and what has become an annual tradition. The Athletic dropped the Cup Series schedule early before NASCAR could announce it. And honestly, I kind of think that NASCAR wants them to put it out first to, kind of take all the heat off potential changes, and then they release the all three schedules at the same time. And everybody's like, oh my gosh, look at this, and kind of forgets about what's happening here. But things we already knew about the 2026 schedule, my apologies. Chicago Street Course, gone. Mexico, gone. Chicagoland in. San Diego, in. Now, there's been some date changes, some things getting shuffled around. Kelly Crandall said last week she thought that Richmond was going to move from its August date up to May. That ended up not happening. Another ISC track, though, in August did move up to May, that being Watkins Glen. Watkins Glen shifts from its traditional August dates up to Mother's Day weekend in May. And that has absolutely infuriated the Watkins Glen fans. The people of the Finger Lake regions are not happy about that. They said, do they not know that it rains in upstate New York in May? To which I'm going to say this. Every single fan group from every single racetrack is going to complain about their date on the calendar. It's either going to be too hot, it's going to be too cold. Don't they know it rains around this time? There's not a good time, realistically, for any date, other than people being like, oh, we want our race in April, or everybody wants their race in late fall. I get it, but it's got to fit in there. Part of the reasoning, I think, behind moving Watkins Glen up to May, it spreads out the 5 road course races next year and really makes it more consumable for some of the fans out there who complained about having too many road courses too soon. They just got fatigued out on them this year, where you basically had 4 within under a 2-month period. Next year, the road courses will happen on March 1st. That would be COTA. And the next one does not happen until May 10th at Watkins Glen. After that, we go back to back. We go from San Diego on June 21st to Sonoma on June 28th. And then the next one after that would be the Roval. And that doesn't come until October 11th. So you're getting a lot of races in between there. And I think San Diego is going to be one of those races where people are going to look past the fact that it's a street course and everything and just be happy that you're doing something different, something that's never happened before. And they're not going to get fatigued out necessarily on that. because somehow that's going to be better than what the street course was to people in terms of how they consume it, and it sits with them, I think, in a weird way. We do have 2 off weekends next year as well. Easter weekend is off, and then we also are getting another off weekend after the Brickyard 400 on August 2nd. The downside to one thing about the schedule, Richmond race is on August 15th next year. I believe that is also the same night as the Knoxville Nationals, which is a bummer because Kyle Larson's not going to be able to race in it. And, well, we're going to have to double TV it once again if you're not at the track in Richmond or at the track at Knoxville. Other than that, we had New Hampshire move out of the playoffs. It is now the penultimate race of the regular season. It will happen on August 23rd, and then we'll go to Daytona the weekend after that for the regular season finale. Darlington maintains its traditional spot on Labor Day weekend. Of course, it will be the playoff opener. The other change in the playoffs, Homestead, of course, takes over as a championship race, and Phoenix will move from the last race of the season, first race of the 3rd round. So it'll go Phoenix, Talladega, elimination race at Martinsville. The other small change on this is Darlington has moved up to March 22nd, basically taking over that Homestead spot that they had this year. So it gives NASCAR another quote-unquote warm weather-ish race in March, although in South Carolina, there's a solid chance that it's still going to be a little balmy around those parts. So we'll wait and see what the schedule looks like for the Xfinity Series and the Truck Series when it comes out, but we have a good idea on what it's going to somewhat look like now that the Cup Series schedule has been released here. We'll see what happens in 27. NASCAR wants to go back to Mexico City. They want to go back to the Chicago street course. We'll see how all of it plays out from there. Are we about to see Cup Series drivers get to participate in more O'Reilly Auto Parts Series races and Truck Series races in the future? Obviously, the term bushwhacker was what we used to refer to Cup Series drivers as when they used to go down and run a ton of Xfinity Series races, a ton of Truck Series races, and they would take away wins from the regulars that were down there, right? People got upset about it, and they're like, oh my gosh, we want to see the actual drivers of the series win. They got tired of watching Kyle Busch win, essentially is what it came down to. So NASCAR limited them. You get 5 a year, things like that. Well, now it appears that they could be willing to walk that back a little bit and open that number up for more drivers. Now, I think there's 2 avenues of thought here. One, the drivers of those series, the regulars of the what will be the O'Reilly Series and the Truck Series, like when Cup drivers come down there to race against them because they get to gauge themselves off of those Cup drivers. Whether that be a Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, William Byron, Denny Hamlin, Christopher Bell, whoever it is, they like when the Cup Series drivers come down there because then they can see, oh, how far can we actually push these cars and trucks? On the other side of things, teams like it because it gives them the opportunity to sell more sponsorship, right? And you can use that to subsidize a driver that you're looking to try to develop as well. Hey, we can put Kyle Busch in the car for X amount of races, but then you can also sponsor this driver for X amount of races. And the sponsor will be like, okay, we'll do that because Kyle Busch is here. There's a solid chance that he'll win or at least run really well, get us good exposure, and they're willing to do that. At the same time, you risk having your regulars not win races. And when you look at the top 10, especially with stage points, and you see that only like 3 regulars got points because the rest are made up of Cup guys, that's where fans start to get a little perturbed at the whole idea of this. But Steve Phelps said this in regards to talking about the O'Reilly sponsorship coming up. He also mentioned this to Eric Estep as well. Shout out to Eric. He got Steve O'Donnell, president of NASCAR, on his YouTube channel. Phenomenal get for him. Go watch that when you guys have a chance. But O'Donnell said, quote, we're going to look at who is able to race in the series in the future as well and maybe make some changes down the road. But there's a lot of opportunities for us to work with the CW or O'Reilly Auto Parts to take it to the next level. So you're operating from a really good base, which is awesome. But I think we've got a lot of growth ahead of us. You look at all the other series and we've had limits on could a Cup driver compete? How many races could they compete? So we've certainly had discussions with the CW and in the Truck Series as well. Does that rule as it stands now make the most sense to continue it as it is? Do we tweak it? So we're looking at a lot of things over the offseason and talking to a lot of teams and drivers. So it seems like they're willing to open it up. And obviously the CW would love to have more Cup Series drivers there. They've had really strong ratings this year. The Truck Series would love that as well, if you can get through a Fox broadcast at times. But overall, it'll be interesting to see if they open it all the way up. Do we go Wild West with it? I hope not. Or do we limit it to like, hey, you can do 10 races a year or something like that? I still don't necessarily want Cup Series drivers in the playoffs with these other guys, but we'll have to see how it goes with that. So let me know in the comments what you thought about NASCAR's response to the request for an injunction, 2026 schedule thoughts, as well as do you want to see Cup drivers in the Xfinity Series and the Truck Series more? Let me know. Like and subscribe to the channel. Follow me on TikTok at BreakHard, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at BreakHardBlog.